Good afternoon. We will call the meeting to order. If our clerk would please call the roll to verify the presence of a quorum. Present.
Present.
Taylor Broyles here for District 3.
Present. Present.
The chair does recognize a quorum of the trust. Notice of this meeting was properly posted on January 5th, 2024. At this point, I have asked Mr. Johnson to lead us in the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda calls for the opportunity for citizen participation. Were there any requests to address the trust turned in today? There were no requests to address the trust. With that, we will move to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes. At the pleasure of the trust, I'll accept a motion to accept or any proposed amendments.
Motion to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Would the clerk please call the roll? Please mark your machines as well.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
The motion to approve the minutes advances by a vote of 6-0. At this point, we are prepared to enter into our departmental items. The first item on the agenda will be a report from our Director and Chief Executive Officer, Brandy Garner. Happy New Year, Ms. Garner.
Happy New Year. Get the presentation up. And move this up a little bit. Okay. So today I have a couple of things that we're going to talk about. Obviously, I'm going to give you my regular updates. Going to talk about our employees, the employee relations, the things that we've been doing for our employees with the help of the community. Talk about some of the safety and security measures that we are updating, our resident programs, the care unit, and then some population statistics. The month of December was amazing for our staff. We definitely felt the love from the community and the support from the community, and it was a nice change from the previous year. There's a lot to cover in this, and I know that I am not going to be able to cover everybody that supported us, but the 40 Days of Joy gift drawings, members of the community organized and donated gifts and gift baskets and gift cards and tickets to events and merchandise from like the Thunder and just tons of different things that our employees could get as gifts. And we did a drawing every single day. And we did it live on Teams, and they really enjoyed that. If they worked the previous 24 hours, then they were entered into the drawing. And then if their name was drawn, then they won the prize. It started off a little slow, but we eventually got to a point where we had a lot of people that were logging in every single day just to see who won that prize. We could not have done that without the community's support. And I'm not even going to try to name all the people that were involved, but the community really just poured their hearts out to our staff, and they felt it. We also had members of the community bring meals, both for day and night shifts. And we had an employee angel tree that our staff organized. And a lot of the angels on the tree were adopted by, again, members of the community who were bringing in bags and bags of toys and bicycles and pretty much anything you can imagine for the kids of our employees. And it was an amazing event. I think we helped over 60 children, which was pretty incredible. Our staff definitely enjoyed the holiday gifts from the Arnall Family Foundation. We have sent her a personal thank you, explaining some of the ways that those gifts were being utilized. It was very heartwarming, and it was rewarding seeing the reaction of the staff when they received those gifts. We've also formed an employee appreciation committee, and beginning this month, they're going to be looking at different things that they can do to show ongoing appreciation. They'll also be looking at ways that we can improve morale. So we're talking about birthdays, recognizing birthdays, different types of awards, presentations, things like that. And then I mentioned this before, but we're still utilizing the SharePoint. We're putting video updates on there. We have a message board so they can kind of ask questions. Moving forward, I'm looking forward to doing kind of an all-call event once a month where they can ask questions of me and some of our executive staff, and we can respond to them and answer questions. And somebody put it as a rumor mill kill, which I think is very helpful because in any type of organization, you're going to have rumors, and I think it's best to just dispel them. Our employee update and demographics, we are currently at 259 employees. That number is, we have had quite a few people resign or retire, and I think a lot of it is in response to increased accountability measures. And on the other hand, I think sometimes some of them are going to higher paying jobs. We have 141 officers and 118 civilian staff. And if you look a couple of months ago, that number would have been flip-flopped. So we are adding security staff every time we hire somebody. By and large, our workforce is primarily female, and they come from the Gen X and millennial generations primarily. This is regarding our next academy and our training. The new academy is going to begin on February 5th. We have 7 hired that are scheduled to begin the academy, and we have 7 that are in the background. 4 are scheduled for the final interview, 4 scheduled for the initial interview, and then she has a lot of people that are still in the pipeline that need to be scheduled for an initial interview, provided that they can meet the initial requirements. And then our training director has developed a schedule for 2024. It includes 4 full-time academies and then 7 mini academies. The 7 mini academies are designed to fall in between the full academies to help us get the required minimum hours by the health department so they can begin working. And what they're going to do is once they go through that, they'll be assigned to a senior detention officer and shadowing them until they are scheduled for the full academy. Overall, we have increased the amount of training that we're doing. We're now up to 5 weeks in class and 6 weeks on the job training, and that's 440 hours of training total. We also have 3 that begin their journey today to become law enforcement officers at Moore Norman Technology Center. And then we have 1 that is scheduled to graduate at the end of January. And then additional training, we have jail tracker training that's going to enable us to transition over into the mobile to reduce the amount of paper that we're doing. And we have supervisor and leadership schools scheduled. And then Corrections One Academy, which is a learning management system. It has curriculum that's already uploaded that we can tailor to our needs. I think it has something like 600 hours. Y'all hear more about it later. I have the training director here to present this item on the agenda later on. Not sure what happened to the slide. This was just talking about the last academy that just graduated. We had 10 officers that graduated last week, and they just began the jail training officer on the job training. So they'll be doing that for 6 weeks before they're released to go on their assigned shifts. And then just a reminder that all of our new hires will go through an academy. On our safety and security updates, we have quite a few things that we have started implementing. We have updated our visitor protocols. So our visitors used to have badges, and mostly our volunteers, they have badges that would allow them access through the employee slider. We've taken those away, and we're making everybody go through the front entrance so they can sign in, and we can ensure that we know who is in the facility at any given time. That also allows us to make sure that they're not bringing anything in that they shouldn't be bringing in, and allows us to search those items. And then contraband interdiction, that's ongoing, and it'll never stop. We have formed a pretty solid partnership with the Department of Corrections. I'm so grateful to them. They have brought in dogs 3 times in the last month. In fact, they're there this morning searching some pods. And it's been a huge help to us. And then we're continuing to do the regular searches at the employee entrance of all of our employees and our vendors. And then we've also partnered with Oklahoma City in light of some of the releases and the situation that we had where somebody was released when they shouldn't have been. And we are now running our releases through them so they can help verify whether or not that person is good to be released. And then, of course, we have updated our resident handbook, and I expect that we will upload that to the tablet and make that available to the residents in probably about a week or so. Interesting. The presentation is not showing the pictures. I am happy to announce that our programs have resumed, and we're starting off slow. We have identified a staff member that is going to be able to work well in that space full time. So we're going to start with NA twice a week, and we have Calm Waters grief support groups that will be coming weekly. And then our care unit has been fielding calls and email messages, trying to make sure that the people that are in our care are getting their medical and mental health needs met, and helping build that connection with their families. One of their projects that they've spearheaded is that they've allowed some care packages to be mailed in. They have to come straight from a vendor. We're allowing them comfort items like socks and t-shirts and long johns, but they have to come through a vendor. And we have a process in place, but the residents are definitely appreciative of that small gesture. And the families are appreciative because it's a lower price point than what they could buy it on commissary. So now we're going to get into some of our statistics. This slide is pretty self-explanatory. Throughout the year, we booked in 22,555 people, and we released 22,835. Our average daily population for 2023 was 1,540. Our average daily book-in was 62. Average length of stay is 17 days. And then we had 1,255 people that were transferred into the Department of Corrections custody. And I really like this slide because it shows the progress that is being made as far as making sure that the people that are in the jail actually need to be there, and getting people released that need to be released, and potentially into some sort of diversion programs. You can see that our population has been decreasing steadily, especially since about September. And our monthly low for December is 1,205. Our top 10 charges for 2023, the biggest one is possession of CDS. Again, this is a disaggregated number, so just because it says possession of CDS, there could have been somebody in there with a higher level charge. The next is a hold, so people that come in and they have a hold for another county, another state. And then you have all the other ones that are fairly minor, except for the possession of a firearm by felon. You have a driver's license violation, possession of paraphernalia, trespassing, and then you have domestic A&B, which is a pretty serious offense, DUIs, and assault and battery. So those are our top 10 charges for 2023. In the next few slides, I apologize, they're going to be kind of dry, but I hope that they're informative. I wanted you all to have the information that we've been able to pull. As you remember, we do a lot of things on paper. We don't have a digital solution. And so a lot of these metrics are having to be tallied by hand. That's why the network upgrade was so important, because it allows us to collect this information a lot easier. So this is what we were able to pull so far. The number of assaults on staff, as you can see, it's trending downward. We did have a spike in October and November. The number of charges for contraband are also decreasing, and I credit the measures that we are taking to that decrease. The resident altercations are also going down. And what I found really interesting about this is once we started increasing rec time, which was sometime about June, July of 2022, you can see that number decreased pretty steadily. And so it just goes to show that that was the right decision to do. It was the right thing to do, was increasing the amount of time that they had out of their cells. Our uses of force are kind of all over the place, but they are still trending downward. The destruction of property is a really interesting statistic. If you look at September of 2023, that's when we really began cracking down on charging inmates for the destruction that they are doing to the jail. We have increased the disciplinary measures. In some cases, we will charge them their trust account if they have the money on their account for the damages that are done. And then in the alternative, we can charge them criminally for that. That also kind of coincides when we started doing the renovations of the pods. And the meld contraband, we don't have data. They didn't start collecting the data until December of last year, but you can see that that is still, it's actually climbing. I know the trend line shows down, but it is climbing, and I think the reason is because now all the mail has to be scanned except for our legal mail, the packages, and medical mail, and we have seen a spike in the increase in the contraband or counterfeit legal mail that's coming through. And then in some cases, the packages that are coming through have contraband in them as well. As far as our medical stats, here's just a few. Our emergency room visits, somewhere around 40 to 50 a month on average. Our hospital admissions, they seem to be declining. When you look at why, there could be a number of factors of why this is happening, but I like to think that it's because we are having a little bit better screening at the intake, and we're refusing people that don't need to be in custody that have serious chronic health conditions. The number of residents that were administered Narcan, it seems to be decreasing. We did have a spike earlier in the year, and then we started taking more strict measures as far as the interdiction of contraband right about July, and you can see that it started decreasing at that point. And then the number of inmates that are receiving medications for substance use disorder, the highest month was in April, and it's only 60. I think that we can do a lot better. And that's going to be one of my goals for 2024, is to get a more robust MAT program in place. And then our mental health encounters, they steadily climbed over the year from January to December. It peaked at about 3,500, and that's anytime a doctor or a mental health provider provides some sort of care to one of the residents in our care. And then the psychiatric medications prescribed, those are also steadily increasing. Our current population, and this is as of January 1, is 1,246, and compared to last year on January 2nd was 1,530. Oklahoma City is by and large our biggest customer, followed by Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office and then Edmond PD. We have 276 people that are in custody on a bond that is between $500 and $10,000. And then the self-reported number of veterans is 35. Homeless self-reported is 48. The number of people that are sentenced to DOC is significantly lower at 68. Age 50 is 127, and that's a 128-day average stay for that population. We have one person that's been there for 1,068 days. And then we have 23 people that are awaiting transport to the Oklahoma Forensic Center in Bonita, and they have been in custody on average for 480 days. One of them has been in custody for 1,026 days. And that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for the director? Mr. Johnson.
It's hard to say. I really think that a lot of it is just holding our residents accountable. We're pushing that quite a bit. and increasing the training that our officers receive so they have the confidence in order to do so. I think it's just kind of related to that.
Okay. And destruction of property, you said you're holding it accountable, but again, a significant spike there.
Mhm.
So,
It's twofold. I think the numbers are much higher than the numbers that the instances that the property has been destroyed or damaged. I think it's much higher. But previous to when that spike happened, our officers did not feel empowered to enforce it. They didn't feel as if it was worth it to do so until I kind of equated dollars and cents to the amount of damage that they were doing to the facility. And then, of course, I think it goes back to training and just building their confidence and letting them know, no, you are okay. You can hold them accountable. So I think that really helped a lot
okay.
with that number.
And I said that it's going up where it needs to be, and especially with the psychiatric meds prescribed. So you think that's good? They're getting the medication they need. So I see that's an increase.
Well, they're prescribed. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're taking them.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. But they do have it available.
They do have it available.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for the director? Would you mind if I asked a couple?
Sure.
All right. Following up on Mr. Johnson's comments on the trend lines, both in mental health encounters and psychiatric med use, correct?
Mhm.
This may be you wouldn't have the advantage of preparation for the question I'm about to ask. So if this is something that you'd like to defer and say we'll visit at a subsequent meeting, that's great. So the encounters and the prescriptions are going up, but at the same time, we're seeing a trend line of declining census within the detention center.
Correct.
Correct. So the engagements per detainee are increasing, is what the data would tell us.
That is correct.
And one thing I would be interested if there's any data that you could either refer to today or comment on in a subsequent meeting. Are more people being detained and booked into our facility who have an unmet mental health need, or are we improving in our identification of and engagement of those who have mental health disorders?
Well, without the data in front of me, I would say that I think it's kind of twofold.
Okay.
I think that we are getting better. I think that the emphasis has been on mental health since last year, January of last year. But I do think that we have an increase in the number of people that have mental health issues, and that I hesitate in saying that I think that sometimes that is the root cause of the criminal behavior.
Right. But fair to say, based upon the second part, that the proportion of our proportion of detainees, we have a higher rate of individuals with mental health today than we might have earlier this year.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And second, I want to say thank you for including information on the report about those awaiting OFC transport. We had a brief conversation about that last meeting. To restate in the record, the detention center receives no reimbursement for the care of those individuals. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
So if somebody is a DOC, if they are in DOC's custody or they are in DOC's orders, at that point, DOC has an obligation to pay, correct?
Yes.
And for mental health competency, there is no such obligation.
There is not.
Okay. The second question I wanted to ask relative to that is, generally speaking, would somebody who is in competency status require a greater investment of resources, both person power and financial, relative to the duties you and your team have?
100%. They require a higher level of care. They take up a lot of our officers' time because of the seriousness of their issues. Everything from just cleaning their cells to making sure that they're getting their basic needs met,
Okay.
Especially when they're not compliant, because some of them don't know what is going on.
Okay. And in addition to the needs they might have while they are in our custody in our facility, periodically they will also present with co-occurring health conditions that might require them to receive care outside of our facility.
Yes.
And to restate, we receive no compensation for such care.
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of my questions. Any further questions?
48-day average, 1,028-day max, waiting OFC transport. They haven't been convicted at this point, right? They're not competent.
480.
That
Average.
is extreme amount of overhead. It's about the most expensive way to house somebody with a mental health issue that's not even competent for trial. They're being convicted of nothing, being detained in a maximum security facility. I think we have to look into that. That is a long time.
And we are not a therapeutic environment.
No, I mean, 1,026 days, we're talking about over 3 years.
Any other questions or comments? If there are none,
I'm just
you bet.
going back to the chart we had here on the administration of Narcan, because I remember it was about September, did we see an increase in October, November, December, pretty steady use of administration of Narcan. But I think that's about when we voted to allow detainees to have access to the Narcan. So has that been what's been part of this increase, or has this been staff
It's not.
initiated Narcan?
It's not. In fact, I do have a meeting with somebody from the Department of Mental Health that is going to help us develop the policies and guidelines in order to get that into the hands of our residents, because it hasn't been done yet. There's a lot of unanswered questions surrounding that we just wanted to make sure were covered before we just started handing it out wantonly.
I understand. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the director's report.
Motion to accept.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if the clerk will call the roll and please mark your electronic record. Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And again, I should have done this pre-vote. Thank you to you and your entire team. I think the data points to some very specific positive trend lines. So please extend your appreciation, our appreciation to your team. All right, next item on the agenda following the director's report is, I think it is time to hear from our CFO. Mr. Sherman, you are recognized.
Well, excuse me, Happy New Year. So for the OCCJA statement for November 2023, revenue, the total income for October was $3,081,889. $3,081,889 with a variance, a negative variance of $147,436, which was the majority of that is we went to NCIC for our telephones, and they actually deposited the money into our trust account. We were expecting a regular check, so we didn't even know the money was in the trust account, so we just transferred it over to the account. So we'll catch that now on a monthly basis, so that won't happen again. Of course, and most of our revenue will continue to come from the general fund of Oklahoma County. Our other sources of income for the month were the Department of Corrections revenue of $149,067. We had our telephone revenue of $52,399, which was below our budget of 77, but that did not include, of course, that 74,923 that was deposited into the trust account. Our commissary revenue was at $46,572, which was below budget, which the majority of that is because of the lower population. We don't have as much coming through our commissary. And just for the trust knowledge, we are hopeful to meet with the city of Oklahoma City the end of this week or next week to discuss the contract with the city of Oklahoma City. On our expenses for October, we were at $3,059,064 with a favorable variance of $217,632. Our salaries, wages, and benefits totaled $1,618,720 for the month, and below budget by $210,532, which of course is our variance of how many employees we have as opposed to what we budgeted for at the 320. So the detainee offsite medical care was $83,324, which was above budget by $15,324. The utility bill for electricity was $43,216 and below budget by $784. And we had professional legal services that totaled $19,781. So for the month of November, jail operations produced a net profit for the month of $22,826. And our current cash on hand is $2,800,000. And one thing I wanted to bring up and bring to the trust's attention is we realized in working with our partners at Turnkey, our medical provider, that the detention center has not been charging the Department of Corrections for off-site medical care for at least the last 2 fiscal years through this year. That number right now is $1,026,840.83. Now, one thing that does not include is that when we send people out, of course, we have to have an officer with them, depending on their level, we might have 2. Well, those officers should be paid for through DOC for off-site medical. We're trying to drill down to figure out exactly how much that is, but we don't have that number yet. But I wanted to make you all aware of what we've been working on.
Questions for Mr. Sherman? Just one very quick plaudit. Thank you for digging in. I think it's important in our accountability to the taxpayer that we identify every dollar that we should be capturing. So press ahead on that. That's very encouraging.
Yes, sir.
At this point, I'll entertain a motion to accept the financial reports. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, if the clerk would call the roll, please mark your computer ballot as well. Yes.
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 Financial statements are approved by a vote of 6-0. At this point, we are prepared to approve invoices and claims that have been submitted, and with discussion as necessary. I believe there's no formal report on that. Those have been submitted in advance, so it's simply a matter of any questions or a motion to accept. There's been a motion to accept. Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the matter? Seeing no discussion at this point, if the clerk will call the roll on item number 4. Yes.
Yes.
Agenda item number 4 passes by a vote of 6-0. At this point, we are prepared to move to agenda item number 5. We will invite Mr. Sherman back to the podium again to discuss a contract with Paycom for payroll services.
Yes, thank you. So we've been working with Michelle Manietta, who's our HR director, and she and her HR assistant spend probably 90% of their time doing payroll and payroll-related items. And it's just not a good use of their time. And so one thing we started looking into, we look into 3 different HCM, human capital management companies, to get an idea of the cost. Working with executive staff, the one that we came up with that we thought probably gave us the best opportunity to help not just our admin, but also our employees was Paycom. Just the level of things that allows the employee to handle on their own without having to go through an admin process, whether it's requesting time off. Those things are still kind of done manually right now. So we're trying to get away from that to free up our HR department. If we added 2 HR people, that would help. But I think with the cost, with benefits and everything, we're better off going with an outside solution other than hiring more FTE, especially in an admin role. So that was the genesis of what now, and I had talked to John with the county about what this looks like. That price might adjust a little bit depending on, and it will adjust on a monthly basis based upon how many FTE we run through the system. So.
Thank you for the report. Are there any questions? Ms. Arnall?
Will they be able to pay twice a month now instead of just the once a month pay?
Yes,
Fabulous.
that was one of the other impetuses for us going through with this, was to make it better for our employees from the standpoint of being able to be paid twice a month. instead of just once.
Thank you.
Follow up to that question, the conversion to twice a month payroll, I've gone through that during my state service. It does require cash on hand to be able to handle what we layperson refer to as the extra payroll. Is the trust positioned in our financial position to manage that?
Yes, we are. And that will be fully disclosed once we actually know what that number looks like.
You've heard the report on this item and the request for action. Is there a motion from the trust?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded on agenda item number 5. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion at this point, clerk, please call the roll and please mark your computerized ballot. Yes.
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 This appears to be the Chris Sherman Day. Chris, if you would stay at the podium, please. Members of the trust and members of the public might recall that at the last meeting, there was an item that we needed to table to clarify its standing in the documents before us. And I believe agenda items 6 and 7 accomplish exactly that, correct, Mr. Sherman?
Yes, sir.
So if you would please present the items.
Yes, so on number 6, the discussion is to set the actual cost of incarceration at the detention center for the purposes of housing municipal inmates at up to $211.82 for the first day of incarceration and up to $61.74 for second and subsequent days of incarceration.
Any questions on this action item?
I do have one question,
Okay,
and
Ms.
that's
Arnold.
regarding the release, the price for the release of individuals. Was MGT able to come up with a number for that cost?
Let me follow up with them. I have not seen anything from them, but I will follow up with them this afternoon.
Okay, I know that you had asked them for that, but
Yeah, I will follow up.
thank you.
If there are no further questions, the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded on agenda item number 6. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, clerk, please call the roll and please mark your computerized ballot. Yes.
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 Thank you. That passes. Agenda item 6 passes by a vote of 6-0. At this point, we're ready for agenda item number 7. And Mr. Sherman, if you would also differentiate why we needed 2 action items on this, just for clarification.
Yes, sir. And so this would be to adopt the MGT consulting and set the average cost of incarceration at the Oklahoma County Detention Center for purposes of judicial declaration as required by Hubbard versus Estate up to $66.49 per day for the average daily cost of incarceration.
You have heard the explanation of agenda item number 7. Any questions for Mr. Sherman? If there are no questions, happy to entertain a motion. It's been moved. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second on agenda item number 7. Any questions on the motion? Seeing no questions on the motion, clerk, please call the roll and please remember to mark your tablet. Yes.
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 Thank you, Mr. Sherman. That motion on agenda item number 7 passes by a vote of 6-0. We're ready for agenda item number 8, which is a report on by the technology director. I understand, Mark, you are subbing today, so welcome, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, thank you. I'm subbing the IT director since his regards. He's been working through the weekend, a lot of hours trying to get this project up and going. So let me. Okay, so the following updates he has here is for Wi-Fi, the network infrastructure, mobile devices, and also the website. So on the infrastructure and the Wi-Fi, the project, of course, began back in October. The network and server hardware installations were completed in November. They migrated all servers onto the new hardware. Now, he explained to me latency dropped we're talking about the jail tracker system specifically on this. The latency dropped from 75 milliseconds to 1. Now, what that means is basically when you're using the jail tracker software or any of the type of software in the jail, it's almost instantaneously. There used to be kind of a lag where you would try to run a report, look up somebody's name, and it takes a little bit. But now it's instantaneously, so it does speed has jumped tremendously in this. Also, the download speed, as you can see, also increased from 153 megabits to 253. That's also an ongoing issue that it will start to increase even more as we go along with this project. The Wi-Fi program right now is about 95% complete installation throughout the entire facility. They anticipate the other 5% coming on this month. Mobile devices, that's the big project about getting mobile devices and getting rid of the paper into more mobile devices. They're completing the configuration of the system. The server side of the system is complete. They're going to be scheduling a final review of the system configuration. It's scheduled for this week. Also, the go live operations, the planning meetings are ongoing. And the last one, the go live training will commence once the devices are received. Now, devices will not be mailed until the final review of the system configuration, which is scheduled for this week. So once that's completed, then they will, the devices will be sent to us, and then we can start with the go live training. Now, the website, we have been working on the refresher of the website. That does take a little bit of a time because the same people who are working diligently on the infrastructure project are also the ones that are doing the website too as well. So that is a work in progress right now, and we will start to work more and more on that as we finish up the infrastructure project. We've upgraded the web server, migrated the code, so the site is live and functional now when you go to it, but there are certain areas that we're trying to review, making sure that the functionality is up and going. So then also the inmate lookup section, that's something that we're going to be looking into going in the future too, to make it easier for outside people to look, find out exactly who's in there, what their charges are, things like that. And so those are things that we're going to be start to really ramp up. Right now, we're going through the process. My group is going through the process of figuring out the entire website, what's working, what's not working, what can we prioritize so we can make sure that it's up and running in the next couple of months. Again, the email completion for the email system, it was completed last year. Wi-Fi, again, 95%. The infrastructure network was done in November. Mobile devices, again, 80% of that is done. We're just going to finalize the meeting, and then they're going to ship off the mobile devices. And then, of course, the website is about 75% right now. And that is it. And I will try to answer the IT questions as best as I can.
Thank you, Mark. Do you want to do a detailed explanation of what latency is in relative to IT?
I can look it up on my phone real quick if you'd like.
We could do the same exact search, couldn't we?
Yes.
Any questions for Mark?
We would like to know the second difference between 153 Mbps to 2. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Any questions? What's the pleasure of the trust? We can approve to, or we can move to accept the report. Okay. There's a motion to accept the report, and there is a second. Are there any points of discussion? Seeing no discussion, let's call the roll. Yes.
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 By a vote of 6-0, agenda item number 8 passes. I was remiss in saying, please extend our appreciation to Jeff. I appreciate the diligence you're playing. The whole team is paying this project. Agenda item number 9, Tim Kimry, if you would come forward, please. This is a conversation about a contract with Lexipol.
Well, good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year also. I apologize. The director took some of my thunder when she was briefing about the training, so some of my stuff might be redundant. Joking, of course. Like I said, my name is Tim Kimry. About 4 months ago, the director came to me and asked me if I would take over the training for the OCDC. I agreed to that task, and the first thing I did was we did a deep dive into our training to see what we've been missing, to see what we were teaching, how we were teaching it, and what we could do better. Before I get into my PowerPoint, I gave you an extra handout. If you would, if you look at this handout right here, it says Command and Control. This is the learning management that we have been operating off of. And if you look at the very bottom, you'll see where it says 1999 Magnetic North Education Training. So this is over 25 years old, and this is what we've been teaching. That is completely, in my background experience, unsatisfactory. If you talk to anybody in the training fields, they'll tell you that you need to have a periodic review of anywhere from 3 to about 5 years on your training. So we were lacking in that area, way behind. So our last 3 academies that I've been involved in, we've went ahead and used the command and control system. That's what we had. That's what the Department of Health has at the current time. So what we did was we modified it to kind of what our new goals and objectives were. We enhanced it a little bit. I spent a lot of time late at night over there pounding out new PowerPoints and things like that so that we could upgrade our training. Over the last month, I've been kind of looking and searching for something for us to go to that's a little bit better than what we have. These what I call TTPs, techniques, and procedures. They change over time, and it's important that we stay up with those. So I found this new system, learning management system, which is called Corrections One. Now, it is, interestingly, it is under the Lexipol that we currently use. It is under the Lexipol. So that they're already familiar with us and what we're trying to do. I've talked to the sales folks with them. They put on a demonstration for us. And let's go ahead and let me go to the PowerPoint real quick. And let me just show you. And what I did was I just did some screenshots of the, one more slide, please. Oh, I got to do it. Oh, I'm sorry. This is my first time. So, okay. So this would be the Corrections One website, which if we was able to purchase this, we would have access to this both as an instructor and also as a student. As you can see, some of the things that are up there: career survival for corrections, contraband control, escorting inmates, hostage negotiations, officer safety, mental health, legal issues, and things like that. They pretty much have covered everything that we need over there. What this does is it makes it easier for us. We spend an enormous amount of money on paper because we're still doing it back, when I come into law enforcement back in the 80s, and there was a lot of paperwork back then. We're trying to get away from that. We're trying to save the taxpayer money. We're trying to save us some money. So this is kind of a one-stop shop. Let me go to the next slide. This is just a lesson plan. It shows us this is escorting inmates, for example. This is a course description. It talks about the tactics and techniques, and it tells you about how many hours this is. Okay. Now the actual lesson is not up there, but this is what we would have access to. Now we can either teach this in class, okay, in house, or we can send this out to our students and stuff, and they could do that online and get their hours. So, and speaking of hours, I don't know if you know, but we're required and governed by the Department of Health. We're only required right now to have 24 hours of training. And I talked to the director about this. We both felt like that was woefully inadequate for what we're trying to do over there. So we have upped our hours from about probably 50 to 60 up to about 200 now. So, but this platform here, this learning management system, like I said, it's a one-stop shop. It's in-house. It does all of our admin records. It keeps all of our tests. It keeps all of our records. We don't have to do making all these copies. I don't have to do all these PowerPoints and things like that. This is another screenshot. This is inventory management. So it'll record and track, all the inventory that we have. It will help us reduce cost and inefficiencies that we have in training. So I thought this was a pretty good system to adopt for what we're trying to do over there. Our training mandates, it has their own course library, so I don't have to spend a lot of time going out there and looking for certain videos and all that stuff. It's already got them specific to that topic that we're instructing on at that particular day. So it's not a bad system. It streamlines all of our assignments. It has its own training calendar. So instead of me sitting there every day doing our calendar for the next month or the next week or the next day, I can do it in advance. I can send it out. Everybody can see it and know what we're doing for that month. It's also currently, the Corrections 1 part is currently certified and used by these states: California, Maryland, North Dakota, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas. Now, there's a flip side to the Corrections 1 Academy. There's actually a law enforcement side, a police one, and a lot of agencies here in Oklahoma already use the police one, which is, again, is a part of Lexipo. I know the Highway Patrol uses it. I don't know, Sheriff, if you guys use it, Police One or not, but there's a lot of different agencies here in Oklahoma that's already utilizing the Police One side. This is more geared toward the detention side, obviously. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what the learning management system would do for us. Again, it's kind of a one-stop shop. It keeps everything kind of what I like to call nice and clean, and keeps us in line. So it would save us a lot of money. In the end, we have purchased some iPads, and so this can be accessed on the iPad by our students, which again saves us just a ton of money from having to copy and things like that. So that I know that was kind of a fast and furious one, but that completes my brief. Any questions?
Questions?
I just want to thank you. I really appreciate your upgrading the training, and it's reflected in our lack of deaths,
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
believe,
Appreciate
and
that.
also from the morale of the people living there and working there.
Well, I
I
would
really
like to
appreciate
say I've had great support from Brandy and the rest of the staff, and it's been a pleasure to have those things available to you to get to that next step. And we really want to upgrade our training to where training is going to reflect how well we do overall. And if we got good training, you're going to see those numbers and things that everybody else has discussed. You're going to see those numbers that's going to start to come down with the right training. So thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. Any other questions?
Any other questions? I will ask one real quick. I assume the LMS is relatively robust on tracking seat time and logging each individual employee's hours.
Will it do that?
Yes.
As far as the time that they're online, yes.
So there is
That's
a
it.
there is a log that is created.
Yes. Every class that they take, they will have their own training. What's the right word I'm looking for? Transcript.
Any questions, or is it the pleasure of the trust to authorize an action? There's a motion. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. That's agenda item number 9. Any questions on the motion? Seeing no questions, clerk, call the roll. Yes.
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 We thank you. Appreciate
you.
it. By a
Appreciate
vote
it.
of 6-0, agenda item number 9 passes. We're ready now for agenda item number 10. Speaker Chair Steele, welcome. Happy New Year. I look forward to hearing your feedback. This is a report from the Criminal Justice Authority Citizens Advisory Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Happy New Year to the trust, members of the trust. Great to see everyone. This report will be rather brief. We had some activities, but we're not able to meet in December because of the holiday schedule and what have you. But I did want to point out very quickly that some of the goals that we have for 2024 include making sure that you all are aware and invited, sort of part of my goal, Mr. Chair, your direction last year is to include a trust member in at least one of our focus groups inside the detention center so that you can hear directly from the men and women who reside there on the input that we're gathering. And I think we're going to try to start with Mr. Johnson on that endeavor, but we're going to try to post those meetings for the entire year so that we can plan our schedules accordingly and not scramble around and have to ask people the week of or the week before. We'll be working with Michelle and Director Gardner to make sure that those meetings are scheduled in advance and at a time that is convenient for the staff. We also intend to continue to increase our communication with Director Gardner to make sure that as we bring official recommendations to you for your consideration, that they're fully vetted and that we have the input and the direction of Director Gardner before and as those recommendations, official recommendations, are being developed. A couple of things that we're really looking forward to kind of exploring more and that have emerged as some areas that potentially should be addressed sooner rather than later include an effective orientation process for when people have to reside in the detention center to make sure that they know how to utilize all of the services and the kiosk and how the services are administered inside. We hear that repeatedly, that just a better orientation process would be helpful. We know that when a person has to stay there, and we hope that it's short, and we're encouraged to see that the average stay is 17 days, we hope to get that down quite a bit as well. But while we're there, we know that effective programming is very, very important, and that's something that's come back online as the director reported, and we believe that we'll see more programs implemented in 2024. But the other thing that we're looking at is making sure that when an individual is discharged, when that individual is on medication and receiving medication, that they're at the very least discharged with a prescription so that they can continue their medication. And there's some nonprofits, great nonprofits in our community that can help fill those scripts as they need them. But we don't want anybody who has been on medication to be discharged and not have medication or not at least have the prescription. So we're going to be looking into that as well. And then the final thing I would say for the trust to be aware of is that as we move into this new year, a big priority for the Citizens Advisory Board is to work directly with you all to create the parameters and the structure and the guidelines for the Citizens Advisory Board. I've been talking to previous trust members, the individual who appointed me and some others, just to try to track down at Michelle's direction, like what are the parameters and exactly what should we be doing? What are our responsibilities? What are the terms of our service, length of service, and all of that stuff? And there's some gaps. There's some gaps in those parameters. So we look forward to working with you directly just to kind of firm that up so that we know exactly what we need to be doing, what we need to focus on in the process that you would like to see that occur. And that's going to be a big priority as we move into 2024. And the final thing is just making sure that we get the rest of our appointments to the Citizens Advisory Board filled so that we can be functioning on all cylinders in our subcommittees as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Speaker Still. Are there any questions for the speaker? Is the pleasure of the trust to go ahead and accept his report? There's a motion to accept. Is there a second? There is a second. Any questions on the motion? Seeing no questions, if the clerk would call the roll, please remember to mark your device. It was a tie between those two. So, yes.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
By a vote of 6-0, the report from Speaker Still on behalf of the Citizens Advisory Board has been accepted. Agenda item number 11 is an announcement item. It is stating that the next meeting of the trust is the Oklahoma County Criminal Justice Authority. It's Monday, February the 12th at 2024. At this point, we move to the item on the agenda for any board comments or general remarks.
No comment.
No comment? Oh, you do have a comment?
No, I said
No comment? Anybody? Okay. Seeing no comments, is there any new business which would meet the statutory requirement to address today? I have not been made aware of any items. Seeing that there are no items, I believe council has asked for us to convene into an executive session. That will require a vote of the trust to enter that deliberative period. So is there a motion to enter into executive session? There is a motion. Is there a second? Okay, if the clerk would please call the roll on that item. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
By a vote of 6-0, at this point, we are recessed for the purposes of executive session. At this point, the chair will entertain a motion to reconvene from executive session.
Motion to reconvene?
There's a motion. Is there a second? What is the trust pleasure? Please call the roll. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Is there action action for consideration in the case of agenda item number 14, which is Parkerson versus Oklahoma County Criminal Justice Authority?
Motion to approve an amount of up to $6,000 for depositions.
Is there a second to that motion? It has been moved and seconded to allow a allowance up to $6,000 for the purposes of depositions on agenda item 14. Call the roll, please. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
By a motion of 6-0, agenda item number 14 is addressed. It is my understanding that there is no action to be taken on agenda item number 15. With that, I declare the meeting adjourned.